Hello, this is Tim Cummins. So we've reached the end of week one of our MOOC, and I wanted to cover a few of the questions that have arisen. We've had tremendous conversations going on amongst the participants on a whole variety of subjects. There are 3 or 4 that I wanted to pick out and just highlight in our conversation today. So the first of those, there was quite a lot of dialogue going on about to what extent can the buyer really be clear on what it is they need. So this is back to the issue of scope and goals and business requirements. And quite rightly, a number of the participants have pointed out that there is always a high degree of uncertainty, and particularly in today's much more volatile business conditions with new technologies, with rapid changes in geopolitical conditions and other things, that being clear on your scope and on your goals is very difficult. So how do you deal with the need to manage change? There are, of course, traditional methods, and certainly ensuring that the change management provisions in the contract are suitable and give you the sort of flexibility and ability to re-engage, to have the right dialogues, that there's clarity over the process associated with change request is one very important element. And of course, you may want to try and build in some safeguards around the economic consequences of those changes. But going beyond that, we have a growing number of tools and instruments in terms of different forms of contract and agreement that are steadily becoming more popular to deal with this inevitable environment of volatility and change. One of those is, of course, agile contracts, which started in the software world, but is increasingly spreading to other environments where rather than agreeing an absolute fix on everything on day one, there is planned variability through the development of particular milestones and review points. But also performance-based, outcome-based, payment by results types of contracts are increasingly being used to address this need for more flexibility and adaptability in what we do. Moving on from there, there was also a lot of discussion around cultural impacts and how variable those are, and whether in fact contracts are really pretty standard no matter where you go, or whether there are cultural variations. And 1 or 2 people had asked, well, what are some examples then of what this does? Well, I just wanted to pick up on that with 3 or 4 of those examples. One might be, for example, attitudes to payment. I remember working with a large UK multinational that had moved from its traditional markets in very established markets in North America and Western Europe, and in the wake of the financial crisis had invested heavily in winning contracts in emerging markets. And in fact, they had to issue a whole series of profit warnings because of the difficulty they had in getting paid. That was certainly in part down to cultural attitudes, but it was also, I think, and this is often the case, around the broader issue of the integrity and the value that's placed on contracts. In many markets, it is the relationship rather than the contract that's considered important, and that may denote all sorts of expectations over flexibility or rules or principles that operate. So those are 2 big differences, and I think another area that's worth mentioning is the extent of need to specify terms. So in many markets, the contractual provisions are in fact potentially covered by statute law. There is very little point in negotiating them because actually there's no great variability allowed. So those issues of business culture and national culture are quite important. But we also need to think beyond, of course, culture in the context of nationalities or tribes. We need to think about it also in the terms of corporate cultures or industry cultures. For example, the construction industry is well known for its relatively adversarial approaches often to the way things are negotiated and the way change is managed. The public sector is one that's renowned for its relative inflexibility of contracting terms. These sorts of things obviously have quite significant impact on the nature and the severity of the risks that people face and how they need to manage those through their contracting practices. Finally, I wanted to just touch on the point of the need for technology. A number of people had observed that when it comes to good contract management and avoidance of many of those 10 pitfalls, that technology plays an increasingly important role. It can create a much more dynamic process, but it can also give us much better controls, much better insight to what's going on. That is absolutely correct, and indeed will be the topic of a Google Hangout panel next Thursday. So I hope many of you will be able to join us and participate on that panel and submit your questions and join our discussion. So thank you very much for being with us this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we very much look forward to you being involved again in week 2. Bye for now.